What's up, everybody? It is the Tuesday. What night is this? It's Tuesday. It's Tuesday night. Waiver Show. This Fancy and Frames, guys. I am your host, Stacey Perez. Guys, we've got the gang here. We've got Keith, Kev, Erica, Rich. We will see you next week. Guys, we are here to give you the most up-to-date waiver info to help you get the edge on all of your teammates. And make sure to scoop up those priority players before somebody else in your league gets them. Hey everybody, how's your week going?
Not as good as Rich, whose Vikings are 3-0. That's why he's not here. He's probably still hung over in an alley somewhere right now.
Somewhere in an alley in Minnesota.
The Kevin O'Connell statue update, they've got up to the kneecaps right now in front of US Bank Stadium. So
is it the Kevin O'Connell?
Sam Darnold?
Yeah.
You think Darnold's up to his ankles yet, or?
I mean, I think that's in the planning stages. One at a time. There's only in this economy, there's only so much money to go around. So look,
very fair.
I think Darnold's still got to prove himself a little bit, but Darnold is like right up there with Fran Tarkenton if we're talking Minnesota Vikings quarterbacks.
Erica, how's your week going?
Good. I had jury duty today, so I got dismissed early on and had a free day off. So that was wonderful.
Yes. Did you say something crazy to get dismissed?
No, they just only had 4 cases and too many people, so I didn't get called at all.
Nice.
How big is your city?
Dallas. It's huge.
That's what I'm saying. It's so like for Atlanta, there's seriously like thousands of people. They pack you into this giant like auditorium room, and then do they do it by like letters where if your letter is called, you can go? And
ours were numbers, yeah. And there were only 4 cases today, so.
Oh man, that's
it's nice.
I just say I hate everybody and they let me go. So I mean, it just
see. I would love nothing more than to be on jury duty, and I'm never gonna get picked. And
is you're a lawyer? Is that why?
Yeah. That's what. Yeah, I mean, nobody wants another lawyer on there because all I'm gonna do is just sit and judge who has a better lawyer.
Well, it's like the Stanley from The Office. You mean I get to sit in an air conditioned room judging people while my meals are paid for?
Sign me up. Sounds like
Kevin says he's 0 RB and is always dismissed immediely.
Exactly.
So. It is true. I tell him, I don't draft a running back till the 9th round, and then just go, please.
Get out. Oh my goodness. All right, guys. Guys, don't forget Erica's waiver article is out and on the internet for your viewing pleasure and information. You can find that over at fantasyandframes.com. You can find that on Twitter as well. That has dropped already. So go get your information. Gary Davenport also does an IDP waiver article for us as well that you can find over at fantasyandframes.com. So if you have not given us a subscription, a like, a follow, any of that yet, you are missing valuable information. So make sure to go do that. Because we are going to jump into the quarterback position here. We've got 2 guys to talk about tonight. I think 2 is probably sufficient. There might be some honorable mentions out there, but I think for actual real purposes, I feel pretty good about the 2 that we're going to talk about. What do you think, guys?
Yeah, I'm down to talk about someone I didn't think we'd be talking about at this stage of the season, certainly, but it's.
Should I throw the graphic up?
Might as well. I mean, it's going to take about 5 minutes.
The DFS show last week, you know who it is because I was recommending him everywhere. It's Andrew Dalton.
Yes. So you want to take Dalton first, and then we'll hit Justin Fields.
Sure, but I didn't recommend Dalton, so go ahead.
I sure did, though.
I know.
I am forward thinking. I do love me a good ginger. Mr. Andrew Dalton, to use the government name. Look, he made the Panthers offense look like a real functional NFL offense. And, I don't want to say, hi, it's me. I'm the problem. It's me if I were Bryce Young. But you know what? Bryce Young was probably the problem because, look, Deontay Johnson looks like a usable fantasy option right now. Adam Thielen goes on IR with a hamstring issue. So up comes another guy we'll be talking about is able to get at some dynamic athleticism to the equation and the best Southern accent you'll ever find on these airwaves. But yeah, I mean, the offense, Chuba Hubbard looked pretty damn good, I will say. Even Miles Sanders looks moderately usable. It's just one big trickle down effect. And that first domino was Andy Dalton. So I do believe that the Carolina Panthers are playing the Cincinnati Bengals in the Andy Dalton Bowl coming up on Sunday. So very excited for that. Not only that, they get to play at Chicago, Atlanta, at Washington, at Denver. Definitely like decent games for Andy Dalton to put up borderline top 12 weeks. So I'm definitely in on Andy Dalton. If you're rostering a guy that, if you're holding out for Jordan Love, he's sitting on your bench and you're screening quarterbacks. Maybe your quarterback has bad matchup, whatever the case. If you just need a streamer or you want somebody that can maybe get you through 2 to 4 weeks with a decent schedule, Andy Dalton's a guy. He's got, it's not like he's throwing to nobody, because I do think Deontay Johnson is a very good NFL wide receiver. They took him in the 32nd pick in the NFL draft. Now you get time with, unfortunately, Adam Thielen. Adam Thielen had to walk so Xavier Legette could run. We're going to see what that's all about. I'm good with it as far as Andy Dalton being the top 12 quarterback.
Did you guys know that oh, sorry, Keith.
You go ahead, Stacey.
I was just going to give a little tidbit of knowledge here about the Bengals defense, that they give up an average of 26 points from opposing teams. That is 7th most in the NFL right now. Of course, we know who gives up the most points.
Washington.
The Panthers.
That's talking about against quarterbacks. The reason that I was so high on Dalton last week, and I had to double check this stat 5 times after Joe gave it to me, but it's true. The Panthers were 5th in pass block win rate. Their offensive line was the first 2 weeks, and the offense was a mess. And unfortunately, that leads, especially to Kev's point, when you have Deontay Johnson, Adam Thielen, guys that are, definitely good wide receivers. If you don't want to go crazy and just say serviceable. And that's what played out last week. Was Dalton had time. He had the quickest release of any quarterback who played this weekend. He was getting the ball out in an average of under 2.5 seconds. That's that experience. And I agree. I think that there's a lot of upside, especially because the Panthers defense sucks. Don't let their performance Sunday fool you. They are going to be down a lot. And I talk about it all the time. That's the QBs and wide receivers I want week in and week out in DFS is garbage time. We saw it with Dak Prescott Sunday versus the Ravens. These guys that have nothing going, like they have a horrible game. And then because they're down 20 points in the fourth quarter, they end up being one of the highest scoring players at their position. So I think this is a great ad. And to Kevin's point again, they have a wonderful schedule coming up.
How much fab would you spend on Andy Dalton? What's a reason?
5 to 10%.
Okay.
I think that's.
What if you're in a super flex?
Super flex, you're probably. It really all depends on how long you think he's going to be starting. Which I think, as long as they're a functional NFL offense, he's going to be starting for well into midseason and into the late season. I mean, I do think that at one point they'll go back to Bryce Young, but if Andy Dalton's engineering this offense the way he did with the first 300-yard, 3-touchdown game of any quarterback this season, if he's flirting with that every week, to quote the great Ben Gretsch, it's hard to put the toothpaste back in the tube.
Any chance they trade Bryce?
Ooh.
I mean, they've already. If there's one thing that Jet GMs and scouts hate to do, it's admit they're wrong. And I think that they've already taken the first step in admitting they're probably wrong with Bryce Young by just benching him. I don't know if they go full on by trading him. So, if they do, Andy Dalton is going to be a borderline starter the rest of the year. I mean, I don't even know.
What about Bryce in Miami? They need a QB, right?
That's a tough sell. I mean, expecting Bryce Young to do it. And expecting Bryce Young to come in a new offense when the issue has been how well can he, I guess, and I've talked about Mike McDaniel, who I trust implicitly to run an offense. That's a tough ask for a quarterback coming into a new scheme, new system, asking him to run that offense where he hasn't been able to make any throws that are NFL worthy, like that are capable of a quarterback, especially when you draft first overall. Like, that's a tough sell.
We got John over here in the chat saying, Dalton's performance didn't really help Bryce's trade stock. I think you're absolutely right, John.
Right.
And everybody who's in the chat, guys, if you are watching on Twitter and you want to be a part of the chat tonight, jump on over to YouTube. You can find us over there, Fantasy and Frames. Their link should be on the Twitter, post as well. Because I don't think you can be a part of the chat unless you're on the YouTube page. So if you want to throw us questions, we will definitely get to them. But if you're watching on Twitter, just make sure to jump on over to YouTube. All right. Let's talk about our second quarterback that is on here that is just almost infallible at this point. We've got Justin Fields coming in 27%. I know a lot of us had some good things to say about Justin Fields, but Keith, this was your pick.
Yeah, I'm upset because there's 126 people watching right now. If all of you would have gone out 2 weeks ago when I made this suggestion and picked him up, his percentage would be slightly higher because 27% is ridiculous. Fields is just somebody who I know the first 2 weeks were rough. They are slowly working their way in. They play defenses with really good number one corners. We know that Pickens is probably their only, I'd say, above average wide receiver, although Calvin Austin did pop, which I was happy to see on Sunday. And we're going to see Fields have better matchups. He almost scored 20 points this week. Most impressively, he did not do it on the ground, which is normally where he is. But this is a guy who has scored double digits all 3 games this season. And that's with only running for 90 yards and a touchdown. So I think that would kind of surprise people. He scored double-digit fantasy points, 25 of his last 28. Again, it just his consistency. You can have such a low floor with him. Obviously, the huge ceiling on the weeks that he goes off. And I know he's 19th right now among QBs, but again, pretty tough start to their schedule. And 6 of the 18 QBs above him, they've already had a single-digit game. So it is valuable to have somebody that every week they're going to at least score 10, 11 points because his floor is so high. And I just think that Fields, again, all the way back, he is 10 top 5 fantasy QB week performances and 16 top 10s in his last 31 games. So you are definitely getting a guy that is 50% of the time a top 10 QB in fantasy week in and week out. And the Steelers' schedule is going to get a lot easier. And I do think that their passing game is going to get better because Pickens, Austin, Freiermuth's getting a little bit more involved. We might get to see Cordell Patterson this week, to the bane of everybody's existence. So they used him in the passing game last week. I do think that Fields and Arthur Smith is a really good fit. It was, one of the reasons I was trying to get the Falcons trade for him last year. So I am hopeful Fields. Next 6 games, Indy, horrible defense. Dallas, horrible defense. Las Vegas, horrible defense. The Jets, okay. Giants, not a very good defense. And Washington, sorry, Jorge, one of the worst in the league. So I love Fields moving forward, and I think he should be owned in 100% of leagues. If nothing else, it's your backup.
There you go. Do you think he starts the entire season?
I think so, unless he starts to really struggle. I know that it's kind of weird the way they're playing it, that Tomlin said that, Wilson is getting ready to ramp back up, but he also used the words that they are going to prepare like Fields as a starter week 4. How do you guys feel about that? Like, do you think they're going to give Russell a shot with them being 3-0 and playing the way they are?
I think it's Fields to lose. I think.
You said probably, Kevin? You do?
I think he's probably there for the long haul. I mean, It seems like this Russell Wilson got the ceremonial captain patch, like to kind of placate his ego. But you know what? We're gonna go with Justin Fields. Like, what was the guy in what's that movie? Any Given Sunday? Which Quaid was it? That was the starting quarterback. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, it was Dennis Quaid.
Yeah, where he was the backup.
He plays the first half of the playoff game. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, he feels a lot like Cap, and Justin Fields is Steven Willie Beeman.
Erica, have you seen that movie? No.
What? You've never seen that movie?
Erica.
Come on, Erica.
Al Pacino's halftime speech is
an Oliver Stone classic.
It's amazing.
Oh, yeah.
You got to watch it. It's great.
Got to. Oh my goodness. Here we go. We got JT over here saying it should be Fields' job. Steelers need to stay with him unless he falls apart. I completely agree, JT. Good to see you in the chat. Guys, I want to actually switch it up a little bit. I want to move on to running back real quick because we got a question in the chat about running back. So before we get to go ahead. Kev?
Can I throw a little cold water on the Justin Fields thing?
Yeah, do it. Do it.
Devil's advocate. We may have a little bit more time to kind of parse this out, but the whole Arthur Smith thing just has me very, I don't want to say worried, but concerned, I think, about the overall upside of Justin Fields, where I don't think it's any secret. Justin Fields looked way better than he has in the past, 3 games than he did last week. In the whole top 10 thing, like even his 19 fantasy points couldn't even crack the top 10 in fantasy. I do think that with the weapons there, with Arthur Smith, as the office would say, the micromanagement of Justin Fields. If you're a fan of The Office, you got the micromanagement joke. But anyway, yeah, I am concerned about Justin Fields' overall upside, where if he was in an offense that maybe had some more free flowing elements in it, and not having to give Scotty Miller like 60% of the routes, and like I'd feel a lot better about just kind of setting and forgetting Justin Fields. I think he should be rostered in the majority of leagues because I don't think anybody else that's in that, like, what quarterbacks are available. I don't think the upside there, outside of like Drake May being named starter, can touch the upside he has. But I'm just, again, concerned about the overall environment. And one feather in his cap, the Steelers are not as hugely negative pass rate over expected as I think anybody thought, because it helps that Green Bay's been playing Malik Willis. But they're still passing a little bit more than we think, which is great for Justin Fields. So maybe that's how we unlock some of the upside in that. So, I mean that's just kind of some cold one.
He's somebody that is a first read QB. If you look historically, he's going to go to his first read. He might check his second read, and then he's going to run. So they have not thrown a lot, controlled the first 2 games. You look in this one, they threw it a little bit more. He had his best fantasy game. I think if they get down, that's when you're going to see him put up these huge rushing totals because, again, if Pickens is not open, he might look at his second option. He's definitely not looking at his third, and he's just going to run. So I do think more big rushing days are ahead as they play some more competitive games because they've kind of controlled all 3 games from start to finish, really.
Yeah, and the schedule coming up definitely helps. I mean, Indy can't stop any running back, let alone, a rushing quarterback, certainly. Dallas, who we just saw get, just absolutely run upon, like the Ravens, like went full service academy offense against the Cowboys. And then you got the Raiders, you got the Jets are a tougher matchup, but they could be run upon, and the Giants. So better days are probably ahead for Justin Fields. But I just don't know how many 30-point games you're getting out of him in that offense.
So hypothetically, would you start either of these guys? For a friend out there, I'm sure. Would you start either of them for over Deshaun Watson?
Yes.
Yeah, I'd start both over Deshaun Watson.
I would.
What about Trevor Lawrence?
Sandwich over Deshaun Watson at this point.
I'd start Dalton. I'd start Dalton over Trevor.
Yeah,
I would start Fields over Trevor this week as well. Not great. I got to see something out of T-Law and the Jags offense until
we got to see. We got to see Press Taylor getting fired.
I was going to say, how soon before?
That's what we got to see.
Shoot, I'm surprised they let him on the plane.
That's probably a package deal, honestly.
Yeah, they're both out of there.
Press Taylor is, the acorn that fell off the Zach Taylor tree. It's not exactly the most fruitful tree out there, but. Yeah,
man. Do you guys? So
when you got to get named after a coffee appliance, you got issues.
Do we see? This is not somebody that we are talking about. I'm going a little rogue here. Do we see Snoop Huntley start this week in Miami? And are we excited about it?
The former Pro Bowler Snoop Huntley.
Exactly. Let's be respectful. Yeah.
Putting some respect on his name.
Yeah.
I just don't know if he moves the needle. I mean, why did you get rid of Mike White? That's what I want to. Mike
Kevin,
White is
specifically asking because we have a joint Fantasy Pros team where we took Tyreek Hill first and Jalen Waddle. And Waddle.
Like Mike White would have been like the answer to our prayers. Mike White would have been
where is Mike White?
Cure-all. He's probably bagging groceries somewhere.
Who's depth chart
should be in tanking mode though. I mean, there's several good QBs coming out in this draft. I seriously I would try to lose every game the rest of the way. Tua is, I don't think he should be playing football again. That's not my decision, but it scares me.
He's on Buffalo's practice squad, by the way.
Sign him.
Mike White. Yeah, Mike Wall. That's They to get in, they'd have to immediately put him on the 53, and there you go. Just get him back off of Buffalo's practice squad. Start him.
Come on.
There you go.
Oh,
can't be worse than Tim fucking Boyle. I'm sorry.
Again, I think they're taking. I think they know what they're doing. This is, they knew if Tua goes down, that was basically our shot. There's a bunch of good QBs, and let's literally go 1-16, 2-15. And whether you want Sanders, whether you want Beck, whether you want, whoever you want, let's move forward with a new QB because they got a lot of weapons on offense. If they have a good quarterback.
All right, guys. So I want to actually shake it up a little bit. I want to move on to running back real quick because Mel had a question in here for us. I want to get back to that. She wants to know, where are you, Mel? There you are. How do you feel about CMC? Are we keeping? Are we dropping? Do we have any weird conspiracy theories?
I mean, does she not have or does Mel not have an IR position?
You gotta hold.
You gotta hold it. Yeah. I think you gotta hold it. It's CMC. You gotta hold it. But do we realistically think he plays this year? You think he comes back? It feels weird. Kev, you had a great tweet the other day about CMC.
Yeah. I mean, who knows how long it'll be, but I mean, you gotta at least hold out until we get some kind of concrete news. It's just you already signed up for the CMC 101. You got to accept the charges. So it is what it is.
Scott says you should trade bait him. What do you guys feel about that?
I mean, trade him for I don't
Who
know.
would you trade?
Are you talking about dynasty leagues? Because sure. I don't know about in a standard league.
Probably just a seasonal redraft. I think this is
seasonal redraft. Or would you trade him for something?
I wouldn't give up anything for him.
Would you trade CMC if you need a running back? Would you trade CMC for I don't know, Devin Singletary?
No, not if I need a running back, because then you're giving away the guy that's going to be the workhorse.
I mean, you got to get if you're 0-3, if you are 0-3, you have CMC. Say what is the most optimal what was the most optimal?
You're saying would I trade CMC for? I thought you were saying if you had Devin Singletary, would you trade for CMC?
If you're trying to get a running back that you can put in your roster.
Yeah, I think I would. Yeah, for sure.
If you're the CMC drafter, you were more than likely, I mean, you probably took another wide receiver in the 2-3 turn, probably thinking of who would be available there. You probably took Cooper Kupp there. But that was certainly an option. There's a lot of CMC 0-3 teams out there. I'm willing to bet.
This is why you don't take running backs early, though. They're just always most likely.
Just don't draft them at all.
Yeah, just don't draft them at all. Come on.
But I mean, we learned this lesson with Kupp last year, and so many people. And look at Puka this year. There's all and CMC, these guys that are banged up, and I'm guilty of it with Puka. And then you draft them in the first or second round, and then they re-injure it, or it's worse than you thought. And it's you want your guys to at least be healthy when the season starts, because it's hard enough to stay healthy during an NFL season anyway. I really do think that that's a lesson learned after the last 2 years, because we saw it with Kupp, he re-injured, and then CMC and Puka this year. Just don't do it. Unless they're an extreme value.
Well, to be fair, though, the CMC thing was kind of a rug pull all the way around by beat writers and stuff like that, where, Puka, the writing may have been on the wall a little bit with the burst of sack. And then, obviously he re-injured that. And now we're in the situation we're in. Right. Cooper Kupp, it is what it is. He's an older wide receiver with a history of lower leg injuries, but still was healthy heading into the season, and I don't think that was any reason. You didn't have any reason not to draft Cooper Kupp, and this is from somebody that told a lot of people not to draft Cooper Kupp.
No, I'm talking about last year where he was injured. Remember, at the beginning of the season, a lot of people still took him knowing he was going to miss the first 4 or 5 weeks, and he immediately got hurt again. Because I'm just saying, don't take these guys early that we know are, at least banged up right at the beginning of the season. Because if you miss your first or second pick, it's an uphill battle, man.
It puts you so behind. We had another question over here. We got Adam from the Fantasy Sports wants to know, and this is for running backs, and then we will get to our 3 picks here. But if you have this trash Swift, sorry, DeAndre Swift, 16 deeper leagues, 16 team deeper leagues here. What do you do with him? So he's got Hubbard and Achane are his starters. You're feeling pretty good about that. And then he's
for CMC.
Yeah, from CMC. You got Jalen Wright, Isaac Guerrero, and Kareem Hunt on your bench. Yeah, do you guys have any suggestions what to do with Swift? I mean, we're going to talk about
close your eyes and hit the drop button. It's tough.
And pick up the Bears back you like, right?
Especially in the 16-team league. And it's, look, I could just go on all day and we have an extra half hour, so I might take 25 minutes to slander Shane Waldron. We have some extra time here. But no, it just goes back to like, how do you decide who gets on the field? Because we talked about this with like Cole Kmet, and we're going to talk about him later. Spoiler alert. But now we're going to do this with the running backs too, where you have Travis Homer goes on IR, at least missed last week. I'm not sure.
Or he would have played the most snaps, the most shocking move in football week 2.
And Roshan Johnson was a healthy scratch, and it took a Travis Homer inactive for Roshan to play. What was the issue? And you still won't use Khalil Herbert, who is probably the best running back on your team from like an efficiency standpoint. Like, I understand money talks with DeAndre Swift. You paid him money. You got to get some kind of return on investment. I get that. But at some point, man, you just got to, I don't know how Shane Waldron, like the literal black sheep of the Kyle Shanahan tree, like how he operates. Like
Swift is averaging 1.8 yards per carry. Like that is terribly low. That's
Bo Nick's air yard numbers. So
Swift has minus 83 rush yards over expected right now. By far the last running back with at least 15 attempts.
So upsetting. Well, Erica, you picked Roshan as your guy to talk about this week. So he's 9% rostered. Why should we be going out and grabbing Roshan Johnson?
I mean, it was mainly for that Swift reason. 1.8 yards per carry is awful. The Bears are, 32nd in rushing attempts and just rushing in general. And as a Bears fan, I'm just sad because we have a lot of potential and nothing is being done with these players that we actually have. I don't know. Roshan didn't do that much, but he's been doing better than the single game. His single game is better than Swift's average already. So I would rather go with Johnson, but I don't know about dropping Swift. I have Swift on a couple of leagues too, and I'm just picking up Johnson everywhere that I can.
Yeah.
It's like an albatross. It's really hard. Like he's just a roster clogger at this point. I mean, the fact that Roshan went from healthy scratch in the first 2 weeks to almost 40% of the routes and 37% of the snaps. And we've got Khalil Herbert out here just toiling away. Last 3 weeks, 6% of routes, 9% of routes, 4% of routes, and then like 10% of the snaps in almost each game. Like
Kevin, remember how he ended the season last year too? Herbert was incredible like the last 3-4 games for the Bears.
Well, like it literally doesn't matter to Shane Waldron because Shane Waldron is like has that Arthur Smith in him or like even that Mike Tomlin in him where Mike Tomlin's so stubborn and has to like have it his way. And he is the only one who is allowed to be right in that offense. Like I know they're your Bears, Erica, but good Lord, like
he's the one that's putting Mercedes Lewis out on the field at 50 years old at this point. So
well, that's not even like, I mean, he's a 6 offensive lineman at this point.
But you have Cole Kmet and Roma Dunze.
Yeah.
At least you have things to be happy
No,
about.
but I mean, I think to Kevin's point, like he's not even playing those guys. In my opinion, the amount of snaps that he should be. The only thing I will say is the Bears' offensive line is really bad. Yeah. I had some concerns, but I thought it was going to be better than last year. I think it's worse. And it reminds me on a lot of plays, Caleb, of what Fields was at times last year, where it's just like, man, you snap the ball, and it seems like there's 3 dudes there within 2 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Eberflus and Shane Waldron are just swapping deck chairs on the Titanic at this point.
Oh my goodness!
You want to hear something sad? By the way, I just looked this up. You know who has the highest PFF grade for pass blocking among the Chicago Bears? But this is counting just tight ends, offensive linemen. It is Mercedes Lewis.
That's why he's out there.
There you go.
Mercedes Lewis is their best offensive lineman at 9,000 years old. He's a
Could you
literal
imagine if he's playing tackle like week 4, week 5, and they're like, yeah, he's our best pass blocker. We're just
I mean, he's basically a tackle right now. Like there's it's the two pictures from corporate. It's the same picture.
Did you see the picture going around of the Chicago Bears offensive line, just all of them on the ground?
Yeah, that was embarrassing.
At the goal, is that the one at the goal line?
At the goal line, yeah.
Yeah, I did see that.
That's rough. That was rough. All right, let's move on to a little bit more positive. I think this is a player that pretty much all of us wanted to talk about in some regard. And because he's a Tampa Bay Buck, I'm gonna get to go first on this one. Guys, this player, Bucky Irving, back in training camp, was super impressed with him there. I don't want to take away from what everybody else has to share on Bucky Irving, but I am very excited about him. I think he's probably, for me, he's my top waiver ad this week. Keith, Kevin, do you guys want to paper, rock, scissors to see who goes first? No.
Kevin convinced me to get on the Bucky Irving train when we first started doing shows together. So Kevin, the floor is yours, and I'll clean up whatever I think you miss.
Rachaad White fucking sucks. Bucky Irving is getting, I mean,
that one, that's at 32.2. Make sure to clip that for the TikTok.
Yeah, please do. Because we need more Rachaad White slander out there. Look, Rachaad White does one thing and one thing really well is catch the football. He's a good receiver. He runs good routes. But, when you're talking about running into the back of the offensive lineman, I mean, if you want to call that a skill, I guess Rachaad White does that really well too. He is bottom. I think he's bottom 6 still in rush yards over expected as well. So he is beating some of the accusations as far as at least being better than DeAndre Swift. So I guess he is our new public enemy number 1. But Rachaad White is a firm number 2 here. As far as the Bucky White stuff is concerned, he's just getting meaningful touches in the offense now. 9, 7, and 9 rushing attempts in all 3 games here. He's still running a meaningful, he should be running more routes, but I can understand that with Rachaad White being so, solid in that aspect. But I do think the snaps are going to be rising. You cannot continue to run out Rachaad White as far as how bad he has been. If you're an NFL offense, you just absolutely need to put your best players out there. Tampa Bay is doing themselves a disservice by running out Rachaad White there. So Bucky Irving has looked pretty spry when he has been out there. That's always been his kind of MO. He's more of like a Devin Singletary light, where he's going to win on elusiveness. Singletary famously one of the PFF elusive rating darlings of the last 3 to 4 years. And I think Bucky Irving is definitely in that mold where it's not super sexy, but he's just productive. So I would love to see Bucky Irving get a little bit more run with Tampa. I'm looking at their schedule right now, Philly, Atlanta, New Orleans, Baltimore. It's not exactly the most, it's not great, but still you cannot as a human being, as a functional NFL offense, continue to trot Rachaad White out there.
No, and I mean, Philly's not especially tough against the run either. So I kind of feel are we firing up Bucky Irving this week in the Vampire League?
Yeah, I'm firing him up in as an RB2 in a lot of leagues.
Yeah, we feel good about that. RB2 flex.
I mean him over Javonte. That's like my decision.
That's
is like him over Javonte or or where I had Jalen Warren. I'm probably starting Bucky over Jalen Warren. That hurts my heart.
That hurts my pride a little bit with the Jalen Warren situation.
It really does.
Yeah, it gets me right here. It's not great. Not great, Bob. Keith, what are your thoughts on the Buckster?
Well, first of all, let me say 4-0 Bravos.
That's right. I just looked it up too. I saw you in there and I was like, oh, I bet he's looking at the Braves game. I got to figure out what the thing is. You know what? Go Braves.
Being the amazing person that she is, literally just came in and put the iPad down with the Braves game on. That's why I love her. And she is
playing the Mets, right?
They are.
We have two back, need a sweep.
Not financial advice, not entertainment uses only. Chris Sale over 17.5 outs recorded tomorrow.
Hell yeah. Go Chris. And he's gonna get to Cy Young. Let's go. This is now a baseball podcast. Sorry guys.
No, it's definitely not.
Damn it.
No. We're not old
Eric has a long suffering white.
So Bucky Irving, or what did you call him? The Buckster? Is that what you said?
Buckster.
Yeah. Buck stops here, baby.
Let's talk about the Buckster.
I mean, what a perfect, come on. I feel like there's so much merch that can be done here with he's on the Bucks, but it's perfect.
Nah, we'll see. I love Bucky Irving. Seriously, Kevin was the one who really got me onto this kid, and I think he is the most rostered player I have in my best ball drafts, in my leagues. John's my boy, man. I've known John for a while. But I am concerned about the snap share because, Cohen deserves some of this bad mouthing as well because Irvin's at a 35% snap share, I think, after this week. Or excuse me, White's around 72%. 25 carries for Irvin, over 6 yards per carry. That's really good. White has 31 carries, just over 2.1 yards per carry. What are we doing here? I understand the difference in the passing game. I mean, one of the guys is 5th among running backs in yards per touch. The other guy is 43rd. You have a really good offense. I don't understand these coaches that feel obligated. And from what I've seen, their pass blocking rate is not much different. So what is the issue here? I hope that they get him going. But as a Falcons fan, I hope that we at least get 2 more weeks of Rachaad White getting a majority of the carries because we play them in 2 weeks. But I am very excited about Bucky Irvin. I think if he can get to where he is at White's snap share, he's got a RB1 upside. He really does, being a top 12 running back the rest of the way.
Yeah, get him at 55-45, and I think we're cooking with something there as far as the Buckster goes. I guess we're just gonna we're rolling with it. But I mean, hilarious that Rachaad White's snap shares have gone up the last 3 weeks. You would think it'd be the opposite, but here we are in America, and that just does not sit right with me.
It really does. I mean, Bulls did say
Acuna's brother.
Yes.
Real quick.
Yeah, Luis is. Or okay. I don't know how to. Don't.
I just want to make sure. I'm sorry. I saw it and I was like, "Is that Acuna's brother?" Because he was kind of just.
They swapped jerseys earlier today. Yeah, it was Harris, right?
No, Zuna.
Oh, it was Zuna. Of course it was. We sat in front of Zuna's family. Keith and I did at the July 4th baseball game.
5-0.
And his wife is very nice. She's a very pleasant lady. All right, guys. Last but not least, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Manuel Wilson. And no, this is not a homer pick, but I don't really care.
No, dude can play, man.
He can play. All right, let me talk to you about this man. 6% rostered in sleeper leagues right now, guys. He put 16.5 points on the board. He's got some dual threat ability in there. He got 50 yards, rushing at 35 through the air, plus a receiving touchdown. He's number 11 on the day. Of course, that was before Monday Night Football stats. So I probably should have looked that up a little bit more before I told you that. But that one play where he had the touchdown, it was a 2nd and 15 in the third quarter. Wilson runs for 32 yards over expected yards after carry. And that was according to the NFL's Next Gen Stats. He had nearly an equal share of the carries with Jacobs, right? Jacobs had 14, Wilson had 12. Wilson was the more efficient runner, going 4.2 yards per carry. look, Marshawn Lloyd is on the IR. I love Marshawn Lloyd. I'm extremely overweight in my exposure to Marshawn Lloyd, which is upsetting. We don't know how long he's going to be on that IR, right? He had the, a hammy issue, then he had the ankle issue, the game that he did get to play in. I think Emmanuel Wilson has really just come in here and cemented himself as RB2 behind Josh Jacobs. They are playing Rich's Minnesota Vikings next week. That is a really scary defense. They have held opposing teams to under 20 points per game. San Francisco was the only team to get into the double digits.
I was going to say, the Texans and the Niners, to me, which is so impressive. Like, that's a legit defense.
Not great. So, this is a long haul pick for you. You may not start him next week, and I wouldn't blame you for it. But this is a guy that you can grab and be confident that you're going to be able to use him the entire rest of the season.
Love it. Really good.
I mean, Wilson's very interesting. It's interesting because of how Green Bay is running their offense now, when it's literally just Green Bay has the lowest pass rate ever expected, minus like 12% right now. And it's basically off the strength of the last 2 weeks with Malik Willis. When they get Jordan Love back, I'm going to be very interested to see how much workload Wilson can take on with Jacobs, because I do believe that at least having Willis at quarterback afforded some more opportunity for him because of how they game planned the last 2 games against Tennessee Indian and Tennessee, because he ran 41% of the snaps, 40% of the routes. Like, that's very, very bullish. Yeah. I would be very surprised if Jordan Love is back for the Minnesota game. You could see that just dipping back down to 25%. Now, when Marshawn Lloyd comes back, I think we're very directionally accurate with the thesis of the Marshawn Lloyd play, and it's now like kind of turning out where it's the same play, but it's just another back in Wilson.
Yeah.
So with all 3 of those backs, that could be kind of gross for even rostering a running back 2 in Green Bay, unless there's like clearly one over the other. But Wilson is a guy you have to have rostered in just in case something does happen to Jacobs.
Yeah, I'm just kind of worried, and I guess I'm kind of, not that I'm excited about this, but I think I'm just kind of banking on Lloyd not necessarily coming back right away after those 4 games. So I think you may.
It feels very Kendry Miller-esque.
It does. It's just kind of icky. I don't love it. Mel, you are absolutely right. That is the game of the week. I don't understand why this isn't a primetime game. Packers Vikings at Lambeau. Get out of town. It's gonna be a great game. I can't wait to watch this.
Just stuck in the 1 o'clock hour.
It's disgusting. Just absolutely zero respect on either one of these teams.
Tom Brady calling that game?
I don't think so. I think Tom is doing a Bucks game, if I saw that correct on the internet.
Well, at least he's not doing
America's game of the week.
Game again. Yeah. God almighty. First 3 weeks, it's like, did they have to do him some favors? He couldn't remember more than
it's like turning on NBC and watching Notre Dame. Like,
Scamp wants to know if we've talked about Tyler Bidet yet. Scamper, that is hilarious. I think for those of you out there, he's meaning Tyler Batty from the Denver Broncos, which I can tell you our very own Fantasy and Frames Jim Bednar would be very upset that you called him Tyler Bidet. Do you guys have any thoughts, feelings on this Denver back?
It's funny because he literally came out of nowhere. I think he was like a 7th round pick from Baltimore like 2 years ago. Yes. And like, that's how bad it's gotten in Denver, is that we're like resurrecting backs or like making up how we say like bathroom appliances, to take Javonte Williams' work. I thought it was going to be Blake Watson getting in there. Maybe some Audric Estime. Obviously, we know he's on, IR. Jaleel McLaughlin. Like, it's so gross in Denver. I don't think you can roster him, but
it is so upsetting. Scamper says that he pronounces it bidet. I'm going to need to see some video evidence of that. And then also, if your name is spelled Batty, why on earth would you not insist on people calling you Batty?
Yeah, it's Batty, or like, I actually tweeted out the other day, like, Javonte Williams got bodied, baited, bidet. Like, we're workshopping this here, but like, it's not great, Bob.
No. All right, let's move on and talk about some wide receivers here. We're gonna switch it up. We have a handful to chat about. Let's just take it from the top to the bottom here. Xavier Leggett, rostered in 36% of leagues. Kevin, this is your guy.
I don't know if it's about like it is my guy. I did add him to the list. I just I don't want to take like full ownership on this quite yet. But I do think with Adam Thielen going on IR, obviously the state of the the state of the Panthers offense is definitely looking a lot rosier with Andy Dalton at quarterback. So a little trickle down effect here with, Xavier Leggett running a lot more. He's run about 50% of the routes the last, the first 3 weeks of the season. And now you're probably going to see an uptick in that as Leggett runs on the outside. Somehow Jonathan Mingo has been working in the slot. Like that's just, don't ask me why, don't ask me how, but I guess that's just what we're doing here in Carolina. But if Leggett is a starting outside receiver along with Deontay Johnson, seeing what Deontay Johnson's done, it's going to afford some attention for defenses where Andy Dalton can go through progressions, can roll through all these guys. And, Xavier Leggett's a first round talent. Like it's a really nice speculative ad. Like if you're hurting a wide receiver and he's out there in the 64% of leagues he's available in, you need a wide receiver. Like he's a perfect bench guy to what's the worst that happens? You drop him next week when he gets 60% of routes. But the best case is you get a worthwhile contributor in an offense that also rosters like Jonathan Mingo, Tommy Tremble. Like those names aren't scaring you. But Xavier Leggett, a first round wide receiver, could make some waves and be a core part of the offense, at least from now until, who knows if Thielen's going to be back this season. That's the thing. So, he's already 34 years old. He was on his last legs half a decade ago. And now, we've got Leggett in there. So
and now he's
definitely
he doesn't have legs now.
He has no legs. He's Lieutenant Dan.
Yes, I was just about to say Lieutenant Dan. All right, guys. I want to talk to you about Josh Downs. I'm going to make this quick because there's not a lot to go on because he has been out the first couple games. Josh Downs rostered in 34% of leagues. Look, his 3 for 22, not really anything to write home about, but just wait. This is why I want to talk to you about him. So his target share was really encouraging, and I think it was telling because he tied the team lead with targets with 5. Also not super great. We can talk about Anthony Richardson later. Okay. But he tied with Pittman and, Richardson, Downs had a really good report last season as well. Chicago, the game last week. All right, look, Chicago defense top 7 against opposing teams. Wide receivers, they definitely got after Anthony Richardson. So, I think that also was a lot of reason for the, not so great wide receiver play there. But I think last year, if you remember, he was second on the team with targets last season. I think he's a frisky flex. I think you go grab out there a frisky flex. Yeah, maybe we should make that a thing, like our frisky flex of the week. I don't know. We'll workshop that later for you guys. But yeah, Josh Downs, he's out there. He's available. He's only rostered 34% of sleeper leagues. So go grab him if you have him available and you need
completely cucked AD Mitchell, by the way.
Totally. But listen, come on, did we not think that was going to happen? Get out of here. You knew the minute he was coming back, AD Mitchell, Alec Pierce, back to the forget it. Go to the bench.
If Alec Pierce had been cardio route runner guy the last couple seasons, if he had done that in the first 3 weeks, I think you're probably seeing Mitchell. The thesis is eventually you're going to have to get to AD Mitchell, Downs, and Pittman. But the fact that just Downs is a pure slot guy. That's you will never see Josh Downs on the outside of a formation, not in this economy. But the fact that that AD Mitchell just got completely vaporized. If you're rostering him, you could just you can cut him right now. And if you you're hard up for a Colts wide receiver, just make a swap AD Mitchell for Josh Downs.
Keith, you're an AD Mitchell stan.
I am. But
do you feel okay about that or no?
What, for this season? Yeah, for sure. He's not. I don't want any receivers involved with Anthony Richardson. Basically, he's either going to have a stat line of 2 receptions for 90 yards and a touchdown. Josh Downs would be the one exception because hopefully that's what they need is somebody that, does well on shorter intermediate passes. I think he was 7th in the league last year as a rookie and receiving yards from the slot. So I'm hoping they're going to use him that way. And it just, his target number, it's okay for his first game back, but it gets up. They've got to learn to be able to move the ball more than just however many rushing yards Jonathan Taylor gets, and then however many, 40-yard plus passes that Anthony Richardson completes. So
it's the same thing as the Bears thing where you need to give these young quarterbacks layups. Like that's the whole thing with Shane Waldron is that you are asking him to, your wide receivers are running these complex route combinations and you're having to put him behind, I'm sorry, it's like a tangential thing, but I'm going to get to the core. It's going to make sense. It's like the what's that movie? The skating movie, Blades of Glory. Like who are you? Rod Serling? Or JFK? It's going to make sense. But yeah, so you need to, if you're a young quarterback, you need to work up to more complex, route combinations. You need the RPO to where you get that ball immediately out to a Josh Downs. That's not happening to like Pittman is just an afterthought right now in this offense. And if you draft him in the 3rd round, you are hating life right now because you can't start him, can't drop him. He's a roster clogger right now. But that's where a guy like Josh Downs has a pretty inside track, I would say, to be the best. Like if you're looking for a PPR option, I guess. He's to quote Stacy, he's a frisky flex kind of guy. Yeah. Flex. I do like Downs as far as his rest of season outlook. I would say he's right on par with Pittman. I mean, Pittman will be fine. You're not going to get 3rd round ROI back on him.
No.
I don't think you're getting that.
I don't think Pittman's going to be fine. He is the worst possible, Richardson is the worst possible QB for him to be with. Their skill sets to me do not mesh at all.
Yeah. Michael Pittman is the Mercedes Lewis's of AJ Green's.
Wow. On that note, Jalen Tolbert, Keith.
11%. You want me to talk about him a little bit?
I would like you to talk about Jalen Tolbert. Yes, please.
I, of course, am upset at this because I was a big Tolbert believer last year, and he did nothing. And then this year, I didn't take him in any best ball drafts. And I think that there is a chance he may end up being in that wide receiver 3 borderline, seriously, he could be a top 36 wide receiver the rest of the way. Dallas cannot run the ball. Earmuffs, Erica. Dottle, 3.8 yards per carry. So let's try Vaughn, 2.9 yards per carry. How about Zeke? He's not eating these days either. 3.3 yards per carry. The leading rusher for the Dallas Cowboys right now, Dak Prescott at 4.4 yards per carry. That is more than Brandon Cooks, who's averaging 1 yard on 2 carries. CeeDee Lamb, is actually averaging 8.3. But the bottom line is the Cowboys are going to throw. Dak's arm may fall off, and maybe that's their plan, is they just want to, use them as much as they can before they either let them go or do whatever they're going to do. They lead the NFL in all pass attempts, 125. That is 41.6 per game. I know that they've been down, but the other issue is the Cowboys can't stop the run. So teams are running on them left and right. They had the most passing yards per game as well. And Tolbert, all of a sudden, 15% target share the last 2 weeks. And when your team is throwing, I think they threw 80 passes basically the last 2 weeks. That's good news. That's a lot of volume. He's seen 14 targets, caught 9 passes, 124 yards, and a score, at least 13 points in PPR leagues. What I love to see, despite being 39th in routes run by wide receivers, he's 20th in route wins. So I think that he's slowly stealing the Brandon Cooks number 2 receiver role. I guess you could say Jake Ferguson is probably technically their number 2 receiver. But either way, again, for a team like Dallas that is going to throw, I think he's a really sneaky pickup. He's young too, so he's got more upside. We don't really know. This is the first real run he's got with this team. and they have some very favorable matchups coming up. And the good thing is some of them are really good offenses. The Giants are not a good offense, but you can throw on the Giants. The Lions are a good offense, and boy, you can throw on the Lions. And then the 49ers, same deal. Like the 49ers, all of a sudden, very similar to last year, their secondary is getting cooked, including by Matthew Stafford and the seven dwarfs. So it has been potential for Jalen Tolbert to be a real sneaky guy and being 11% owned. Like if I had Brandon Cooks, I would drop him if Jalen Tolbert was available and go pick up Jalen Tolbert. Would you agree, Erica, or is that too much?
No, I like Tolbert. And he's been getting more work. They're just passing so much. So someone is getting the volume and CeeDee's not getting much. I mean, it's all very evenly spread out, it seems like, in Dallas right now.
And that's the issue. That's the issue I have with Jalen Tolbert is that CeeDee Lamb is obviously going to be an alpha. Like you can't pin 7 targets on him every week. That's just an outlier. But Cooks, you have Kevontae Turpin and like operating as like a random slot now and like looking halfway decent. Jake Ferguson is now back. Like Rico Dowdle's earning targets now. Like they spread the ball. Like there's going to be volume, and it's hard to pin when Jalen Tolbert is like at best the third wide receiver. I would say I don't know if I can like make any kind of conviction to where he could be the second target, but at worst he could be like the fourth target. When would you ever start him? That's the one. That's like the issue I have, and I understand the thesis 100% because Dallas has been like itching and pining for a second option forever now. Brandon Cooks is on the back end of his career. Certainly, they had made like no effort to bring in any kind of depth with that team as far as wide receivers. Like you're running out Kevontae Turpin, you're running out Jalen Brooks, obviously Tolbert, but you're running out like these random ass tight ends like Brevin Spanford, and you're giving Deuce Vaughn more run now. Like and Hunter Lupke, NDSU, by the way, prayers up to you.
He saw 14 targets. So while you're saying all these people are ramped up, he saw 14 targets in the last 2 games. He's run the 40th most routes in the NFL. I mean, like among wide receivers, I think that this Cowboys team is going to be down. They're going to be throwing all season. Like that's just what they cannot run the ball. They have 62 rush attempts for 220 yards. I think Dak is going to end up throwing it at least an average of like 37, 38 times per game. If he's getting a 50% or 15% target share, which is what he's got the last 2 weeks, he can do some damage. I mean, he definitely would be a second flex, potential. Or I think even a wide receiver 3 if he continues to play the way he has the last couple of weeks.
I mean, with like, bye weeks are coming up too, so he could earn some viability there. It's just, I don't know. Like, I don't know if it's like my priors with Jalen Tolbert and him kind of just always kind of being a jag, but look, I'll be wrong. I'm happy to be wrong. More than happy.
I'll remind you.
I know you will. And I will also remind you if that, thesis happens to be correct. But, there's good people on both sides of the Jalen Tolbert argument.
Oh my goodness. All right, guys. Rich had Tutu Atwell in here. He unfortunately couldn't join us tonight, but does anybody have anything they'd like to share about Tutu Atwell? Or we can move on to Juwan Jennings.
I just don't know if there's any Rams receiver that you can like actively start or even roster.
Yeah.
Like Demarcus Robinson would be like the only one, but even him, I don't feel confident in ever. Like if I roster him, okay, cool. What do I get if I win? I get 4 catches for 47 yards. Like, I mean, the Rams like pulled that game against the 49ers out, but it wasn't like off the strength of like anything but Kyren Williams. And I think that was an anomaly there. I don't think there's going to be any out to the passing game as currently constructed. Like, I don't think one guy is going to separate over the other. I think it's just going to be like
a bunch of
guys get 5 targets.
Yeah. A bunch of not frisky flexes. Erica, tell me that you got Juwan Jennings last week and that you started him somewhere.
I did not. I basically
I didn't start him.
Classic, baby.
So that's okay.
Was he on your bench?
He was on my bench in a couple places. Yeah, but I had better options, or so it appeared, better options, right? And then I got boned.
I love you, Jim Coventry, but I started him in my last Flex and Kings Classic.
Ooh.
Scored 200
I hope
points.
you won.
Oh yeah, I scored 209 points this
Dude,
week.
I almost lost in a league, in an FFPC main event. Like if Travis Etienne had actually had a day, like I would have been screwed, even though I started Juwan Jennings.
Imagine Travis Etienne having a day. Like, what's that?
Right.
It feels like it's been forever.
I don't know what that's like. Yeah,
it's like a summer dream.
Yeah. So Juwan Jennings. So he got 45.5 PPR points. Like that's insane. It already like ramped him up to number 4 overall out of all wide receivers through 3 weeks, just for that one single game, basically. Of course, he had the big week because, no Debo, no Kittle, no McCaffrey, but Kittle might be the only one that comes back next week for those guys. And we don't know. Oof. We don't know anything about McCaffrey. Yeah, who knows when he's coming back. And then Samuel's always hurt. He's always missing games. So Jennings got 40% of all of the targets and 47% of the air yards versus the Rams. And Ayuk was still the first read, but Jennings was, second read. And he may not be able to, have that efficiency like he did this week, but who knows?
He just Ayuk has not looked right. And,
he's still in
there. Yeah.
He's in his preseason era.
He is in his preseason era. I think it was I want to say this is a basketball reference for you guys, but I want to say it was the guys on the Ringer compared Juwan Jennings, to Robert Ory. I may have had my phone up to check on the Braves score. That was my phone sliding down. Sorry, guys. But yeah, they compared Juwan Jennings to Robert Ory, just coming off the bench and just scoring at will. And I was like, that is Juwan Jennings. They just go to him and he's open and he's there and he's amazing.
I mean, they paid him. They brought him back on a 3-year extension, $20 million. Look, all that had to happen was Brandon Ayuk needed to hold out and be in preseason, and Debo needed to get hurt, and Ricky Pearsall needed to get shot, and George Kittle needed to be out. But other than that,
poor Ricky. Oh man. And poor Andrea. Man, Andrea started and lost with Jennings. Oh, girl.
Pour one out. That's
pour one out. That is rough
stuff.
That is rough. We got John over here. Jennings is going to be a factor in the Niners offense all season, or was just the right place at the right time. I tend to think he's going to be a factor. I mean, look, back in the Super Bowl last year, they not only threw him a touchdown, but he also threw for a touchdown. This is the guy that inevitably is going to vulture touchdowns from you, even when everybody who is, on the team normally and healthy is out there. I think would you guys feel comfortable starting him this week?
Yeah. Oh,
right.
I would certainly start him. The thing is, it's Debo is eventually going to be back. Brandon Ayuk is going to shake off not having training camp and not having preseason. That's eventually going to happen. George Kittle's going to come back. I don't know if CMC is going to come back, but it's going to be the pecking order thing where the way it's always been with San Francisco weapons, where you have all these guys and someone's got to sit on the sidelines and watch everybody else score, like the SpongeBob meme of Squidward watching, Patrick and SpongeBob just going, yeah. That's going to be one or two of those guys every week once everybody gets healthy. I think he's probably, with Jennings, now we're getting into bye weeks in the next couple weeks, probably a back end wide receiver 3, a solid flex, but it's all going to hinge on the health of these guys, where if Kittle's back and Debo is back, the bet gets so much thinner. He becomes boom or bust.
Keith, our shutout is over. The Mets just hit a home run. It's disgusting. But they're still losing, so there's always that. All right, guys, we're ready to move on to tight ends. We've got some questions here in the chat. You want to do some questions first before we move on and wrap up with tight ends?
Let's question it up.
Some questions. All right, we got Brandon over here wants to know Tank Dell versus the Jags this week. Are you firing up Tank Dell?
Yeah, we're not worried. We can't be worried.
Come on.
Tank Dell is still running a ton of routes in a great offense. He's I would say just he gets lost in the shuffle, and And it's very easy to like look at the box score and be like, Tank Dell isn't doing shit for my team right now. What am I doing? But every single thing as far as running routes, route participation, Houston's been in some weird game scripts. I think everything is completely fine with Tank Dell. He's going to have his weeks. It's just a bad run out the last few weeks with Stephon Diggs scoring like 2 touchdowns in week 1, Nico Collins dominating week 2. Just they took out a lot of their starters last week when they were down. Like it's been a kind of a weird run out where Tank Dell has just kept pulling on the slot machine lever and just getting, lemons. But it's gonna you're gonna get those 7s, you're gonna get those cherries at some point.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that was a one-off. Like the Minnesota defense is just absolutely unstoppable right now. I mean,
Ryan Flores gives an F about nothing.
Nothing.
Like he is playing.
You mean a 3-off, right, Stacey?
Yeah.
This is 3 games he's done nothing. I have concerns, especially if Mixon's back. They're running the ball and they are like, I mean, Nico Collins is their uber target, and Diggs is kind of Diggs is taking over kind of Dell's role as the second option. And I mean, if you look last year, that's basically what they were doing. He's going to be more like Schultz last year, where he'll have a big game probably once every 4 or 5 games. But I do have concerns if Mixon's there that their offense is going to be humming. They've ran the ball a ton in the games Mixon's played, and then just with the targets Nico's getting and where Diggs is seeing the ball, like in the red zone, I do have concerns. I mean, it depends on who else you have, but I'm not like just automatically starting him.
So I think my biggest concern is that Jacksonville allows the 4th most fantasy points per game to opposing teams' running backs. So I feel like it is going to be a big run game, regardless if it's Mixon or even Cam Akers back there. But I still feel like their offense can support maybe not all 3 to be relevant in the same game, but I still think all 3 at the end of the season are going to end up being relevant. I didn't mean for that question to take that long, but that's okay. We're getting good discussion here. Tootsie Pop, our girl Rach over here wants to know, Brandon Ayuk is killing her. She wants to know where she goes for the support group. That's a great question. I think we are all going to need to head there after the show. We got a better ad over here. Are we adding Roshan, Emmanuel Wilson, or Cordarrelle Patterson, baby? He's back. It's a thing.
Oh, dear God.
Right? I would almost.
It depends on what you need.
It feels like that's a trap, right?
It's completely dependent on what you're like. Are you looking for someone that you can plug into a flex? Are you looking are you just looking to bolster your bench with a contingent play? Because in that case, it's probably between Roshan and Emmanuel. If you're looking to someone that you probably could start in a pinch based on Najee and Jalen Warren's the health issues, might be Cordarrelle Patterson. Like, I guess out of the 3, if I had to choose without any other context, it'd probably be Patterson.
I just feel like Arthur Smith is always going to find a way to use Cordarrelle Patterson. Jalen Warren's banged up.
Patterson has pictures of Arthur Smith. I'm convinced.
He has naked pictures of Arthur Smith. You know he does, 100%.
You said it. I didn't want to say that. I didn't want to go to like.
What? Oh, that's what you implied. I just said it out loud.
Yeah, but you're the one who said it. So I'm completely hands off here. I am absolved.
That's the one thing I will absolutely say it out loud. We got Dylan over here. He has an urgent question for us, guys. He is 0-3. Who all his players are struggling or hurt. You join the club, buddy, because all of us have been feeling that. Is a redraft full point PPR. He wants to know, does he trade Anthony Richardson, Etienne, and Wilson in order to get Lamar, Montgomery, and Ayuk? I feel like you smashed that immediately. Is that even are we even having discussion about this?
I can't believe the other guy's taking it. Yeah, do it.
I guess run the podium. I'm assuming that's Garrett Wilson. Yeah, that's fine.
Not Emmanuel Wilson. Would it matter if it was Emmanuel Wilson versus Garrett Wilson?
Roman Wilson or Wilson from Home Improvement,
Yeah.
This is already hiding my face, so I guess this is a Wilson bit.
Yes. So the answer, Dylan, is yes. We want you to do that. Please go do that immediately. We got John over here wants to know Burrow at Carolina or Daniels at Arizona this week.
Oh, Jaden Daniels, 100%.
I go Jaden.
But I mean, I don't want to say like everything's wrong. Like Burrow's tough for me right now, and I do think that they're going to be running a lot against Carolina. Although, like the Bengals are still like the top team in terms of pass rate or expected, but there's just something off with the Bengals right now. And I don't know if it's just the whole Higgins thing, the fact that they don't like use Chase Brown at all, which is just kind of mystifying. We've seen this song and dance before with Zach Moss, like they will never beat those allegations of playing Zach Moss too long and then he just breaks down and then we're left holding the bag of another Travion Williams 20% snap share with like random Chase Brown screens. Like I'd rather have that, but yeah, Jane Daniels is hard to not start right now after seeing what he did on Monday Night Football.
Yeah, it really is. So I think we're gonna go Daniels at Arizona. Now we're going to move it on. We're going to wrap the show here with the most electric position in fantasy football this season, tight ends.
This is why you tuned in, folks.
Why tuned in. If you are one of the 351 people watching us right now and you have stayed all 1 hour and 10 minutes, this is what you came for right here was the tight end talk. Let's see. We got Cole Kmet, we got Brenton Strange, Tyler Conklin, Noah Fant, Cole Kmet, Kev. This should be a smash immediately.
I am pot committed here.
Let's go
with Cole Kmet. Look, for all of the slander I have given to Shane Waldron, it took him 3 weeks to finally get rid of the whole Gerald Everett experiment and say, hey, maybe the guy that broke out last season and was tight end 8, maybe he should be getting more of the routes again. And you know, he went from 36% to 60% to last week 71%, earned 11 targets, 10 for 97 and 1 touchdown. Cole Kmet and Dallas Goedert both carrying the tight end position on their strong, able backs. Like the hitchhiker guy, the yodeler guy from The Price is Right. Eventually they will fall off the cliff, but until then, you got the Rams, you got the Panthers, you got the Jaguars. They're letting Caleb Williams throw the ball. I think he threw like 52 pass attempts last week. Like it's like the part of the CJ Stroud thing where they let him pass through it. And if Shane Waldron is maybe going to let Caleb Williams pass through it a little more, then I'm in for that. Like the Rams can be passed upon 100%. So can Carolina, so can Jacksonville. And then they have Washington, Arizona, Patriots, and then Green Bay week 11 is like a little bit of resistance. So I think Cole Kmet is a startable top, he's a tight end 1. I don't think he's a low end tight end 1, but there's been a lot of tight end discussion around fantasy analysts and all this about is tight end position dead? Should we just fold the tight ends into the wide receivers and get rid of the position altogether? And I would say, I don't want to talk about that. But for right now, if you do have the tight end position, you can start Cole Kmet as a tight end 1.
There you go. All right, Erica, talk to me about Brenton Strange. You and Rich were both pretty high on him for the Jags while Ingram is out. He's rostered 35% of places. Introduce us to Brenton Strange.
Yeah, to be fair, though, I do like Cole Kmet better this week, especially as an ad. Really, Brenton Strange, really all tight ends are going to be a crapshoot. It seems like no one is really consistent every single week. But thanks to Keith here, who helped me get Brenton Strange on one of my DFS lineups. And I won that DFS lineup last night. So that was fantastic. But he didn't even play. Huh?
Are you retiring early?
Yes. No, it was a free lineup, but I didn't get eliminated in my league. So
there you go.
But Strange is already the number 4 tight end on the year with just 2 games. He didn't even play in week 1. This week, he only had 2 receptions for 12 yards, but he did get the touchdown. And he's seen a 12% target share and 60% of all snaps with Ingram out. And it looks like Ingram's most likely going to be out for a couple more games, or at least one more game. So he's a good spot start, averaging, 9.3 fantasy points per game, which is good for the tight end position lately. So I like him this week.
2 top 10 finishes back to back. Pick up some Strange.
Let's get weird with it. Let's get strange with it. That doesn't quite have the same
panache.
No, it really doesn't. But that's okay. Tyler Conklin, Keith, talk to me about the Jets tight end.
Well, since we're on tight ends, I want to talk about how my Cincinnati Bengals tight end had more fantasy points than the Cincinnati Bengal tight end you told everybody to pick up last week, Mike Gesicki. And do want to say, Eric All, I think eventually he's going to get there. He leads all tight ends and target per route run rate. So they do understand he is a really good pass catcher. So just keep an eye on him moving forward. But Tyler Conklin, after seeing no volume week 1, I think the Jets have kind of figured out they maybe need to throw it to somebody other than Alan Lazard and Mike Williams, outside of, obviously Garrett Wilson and the running backs. Among tight ends, he's first in snap share, first in yards per reception, third in yards per target, fifth in routes run, which is obviously big. And despite being 20th in targets, he's 9th in receiving yards, so doing well there. And over the last 2 games, which is what's really important, because the first game he was not involved at all, he had the most targets other than Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall. Conklin with 8, Lazard with 7, Williams with 5. The next 3 games, just treasure trove for tight ends. The Broncos, Vikings, and Bills, all 3 defenses versus tight ends are in the bottom 14 in targets allowed, receptions allowed, and fantasy points allowed.
Well, you made me go look up stats now about Mike Gesicki, which I'll get to in a second, because I think Kevin actually wanted to talk about Tyler Conklin. So I mean, interrupt you, Kev.
You're good.
Okay. All right. So I wasn't going to talk about Mike Gesicki, Keith, but since you brought it up, Eric All has 8 targets so far in the Cincinnati offense, whereas Mike Gesicki is actually tied for first in targets with Jamar Chase. So I'm going to take that right now. He's got to also.
Did he have last week?
Targets last week. That's a great question. I don't have that pulled up right in front of me now, because I wasn't going to talk about him. He had 5. That works. I mean,
Eric All had 4, and he was only ran, I think it was 12 routes. So I'm just saying.
For now, until Eric All wants to run the routes, he will be Eric Sum until he can do that.
Ooh, there we go. But guys, let me wrap.
That's as low hanging fruit as it got.
That was bad.
Love it. All right, guys. Noah Fant, not the sexiest pick in the world here. He's rostered in 17% of all leagues. He's been on the field 75% of snaps, 81% of the snaps. My biggest concern, though, was that he was only on the field for 44% of snaps on Sunday. But keep in mind, that was kind of where DK just totally took over that game. He had 15 points. He went 6 for 6 with 60 yards. Solid production, especially from that position. He is averaging 5.8 points per game, and I know you're going to say that's really disgusting. Yeah, so is the tight end position.
Not among tight ends, it's not.
Gross. It's super gross. So listen, if you've got, a Laporta, a McBride, a Njoku, somebody that's been injured, maybe you've got Kelsey that's not really doing anything right now. Noah Fant could be a fill-in for you. They do play Detroit Monday Night Football, and then they've got the Giants in week 5. So those are good matchups for him. So Noah Fant rounding out. There's also a couple that, I wanted to bring up that we didn't put on here, but what about Zach Ertz right now? Anybody have any? I mean, he's rostered right now in 21%. He also is second in his team in targets, also second in his team in yards so far. And he's been on the field for more than 50% of the snaps. So I think he might be a viable option as well, just to kind of make it short and sweet about Zach Ertz.
Yeah, if you need 4 to 5 targets, Zach Ertz is your guy, because that's what he's done in both weeks. It's not sexy, but it's
that is the tight end.
If Jaden Daniels is taking another step up, that's probably only good for Zach Ertz, who is not seeing any meaningful drop in routes or anything like that due to the competition behind him. Sinat is not available to be picked up in any leagues because he's an afterthought. I'm sorry. And John Bates is total blocking Mercedes Lewis. So you don't have to worry about him. Zach Ertz is going to be out there. By the way, the Tyler Conklin thing I had, 6 targets, by the way, 5 for 93 last week on 11-yard ADOT.
Yes,
that's pretty good. That
is pretty good. Guys, last but not least, we have got some IDP notes here for you. We are gonna wrap right here at 9:30 so we can get you on to our hockey show. But Kev, go ahead and read us the notes that we've gotten here from Jorge on these IDP players.
Me. All right. Sorry, because we got to do some light reading here. But look, individual defensive players, you need them, we got them. Jeremiah, this is like I feel like a spelling bee like moderator right now, having to spell or pronounce Jeremiah Owusu Koromoa. Did I do that right? All right.
Bravo. I wouldn't have known even if you didn't.
I mean, I'm sure he is a real NFL player for sure. He does play for Cleveland. He is a linebacker. 26% rostered on Sleeper, 24.2% rostered on Fantasy Pros consensus rostership. Using Fantasy Pros IDP scoring, JOK. If that's a nickname, like I might be in on this guy. I'm going to try to pick him up. Is linebacker 23 on the season with an average of 13.3 fantasy points per game, coming off of week 3 that saw him have a position-leading 98.6% snap share for the Cleveland Browns, while his season-long 12% tackle rate is not in the ideal range of linebacker 1 ranked linebackers. His volume on the field should keep him low LB2/high LB3 role. Down for that, Carl Granderson, defensive lineman of the New Orleans Saints, 7% rostered on Sleeper, 7.9% on Fantasy Pros consensus rostership. The defensive lineman 8 in fantasy points per game at the position with a value of 13.1 points is becoming par for the course for Granderson as he begins his second full season as one of the team's starting defensive ends. Per Pro Football Focus, tied for second in pass rushing pressures on the quarterback with 18, tied with Micah Parsons, only trails Aiden Hutchinson. I heard he's pretty good. His win percentage versus offensive lineman blocks 21.8%, which is pretty elite. Shocking that he is that available in IDP league. So go get him ASAP. And then Quentin Lake, defensive back for your Los Angeles. Oh, he's nobody's Los Angeles Rams on these airwaves, but for the Los Angeles Rams, 1% roster on Sleeper, 10% roster on Fantasy Pros consensus. The defensive back 20 in points per game using Fantasy Pros IDP scoring. Lake is becoming the defensive back on the Rams you should roster. This cornerback has been playing most of his snaps closer to the line of scrimmage, assisting on run support and slot coverage. That makes him a primary target in passing down situations, evidenced by his team leading 13 targets against this season. If you're hurting at the defensive back position, Quentin Lake is worth an ad.
Nice. Thank you. Guys, and remember, you can find all of our waiver information with Erica's article. You can find it with Gary's article over on fantasyandframes.com. Make sure you go check that out, please. You can also find it on Twitter. Look for our posts. Make sure to give us a follow at fantasyandframes.com to get all the information. And we will be back every single Tuesday starting at 8 o'clock to give you all the waiver wire information that you're going to need to make sure to dominate your leagues this week. Guys, you can give all of us a follow over here online. We got everybody say your handles real quick. Kev, you go first.
K Tompkins II.
Erica.
America 108. America with a K.
Yes. Keith, you're up.
Oh, it's Keith Fleming. Just like it snaps.
I am at Stacy_Perez83. Thank you so much for everybody who's hanging out in the chat with us tonight. And again, we will see you next week. Bye, everybody.